Hi, I'm Nat.
And I'm Guy. And Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin set to meet, as well as Steve Bannon, 2028 possible presidential run. And the U.S. offers a $50 million reward for Nicolas Maduro. All that and more today on Nat and the Guy.
Yes.
You want to get into the first? Maybe we should start with Bannon, you think?
Sure.
Okay, let's do it.
So, according to Benny Johnson, or from Benny Johnson, breaking, Steve Bannon is reportedly planning a 2028 presidential run, according to the Daily Mail.
Yeah, and maybe we should talk a little bit about who Steve Bannon is. A lot of people might not know who he is, but he is actually Donald Trump's brain, or he was, and he was the reason Donald Trump was actually brought into popularity. Originally, when Bannon was trying to recruit a populist candidate for 2016, he looked at Sarah Palin. He looked at a major news broadcaster, as well as Trump. He went to Trump thinking he would be denied. Trump was actually interested. Bannon's the one that gave Trump all of his populist beliefs. Over time, Trump began to believe in these, maybe because of his ego, maybe his narcissism. The people really loved these basic points of get rid of illegal immigration, nationalize, bring manufacturing back. All this was Steve Bannon's ideas put into Donald Trump's head, and Donald Trump's the one that presented it to the public. The only thing Donald Trump and Bannon were kind of aligned on in the beginning was China. Bannon is a China hawk. Trump's always been a China hawk. Bannon is more of an extreme China hawk, and if he does actually run for a 2028 election, I would expect a war with China.
And with Steve Bannon, he also was able to, I think, teach Trump how to speak to a different base, which was the people, to call it that way, or the disenfranchised people that had felt ignored by the Democrats for so long. And that is also what kind of propelled it all. But now he has always kind of stayed within the shadows and in the background.
And he has a lot of legitimacy because when they wanted him to testify against Trump, he refused. He went to jail. Trump then gave him a pardon, and then he was released eventually. But he did quite a bit of jail time. He has a lot of legitimacy in the base. Conservatism and liberalism is really dying under populism. Both are eventually going to die, and you're going to have something new sprout out of it. Liberalism is very likely socialism or communism. Conservatism is very likely Christian nationalism or religious nationalism, and Steve Bannon is really kind of in that vein. That's kind of what's probably going to come after Trump, most likely. It's going to be interesting because his major competitors for 2028 are going to be J.D. Vance, are also going to be, who else did I say the other day?
Ivanka Trump.
And then...
But I think if he doesn't run himself, they might put him behind Ivanka and keep propelling that as well.
Yeah, if it was Bannon and Ivanka, that would be great, but I don't know if Steve Bannon's going to play second fiddle to Ivanka, who really has a lot of Democratic tendencies, but who knows? Steve Bannon is always trying to appeal to the left with this new form of right populism, but putting a leftist type of spin on this populism, which really does appeal to a lot of leftists because it is traditional liberalism. Basically, how the modern right wing got all those traditional liberal values was Steve Bannon. There were three major brainchildren in today. I guess you would say brainchildren today in modern populism. It would be the brain of Putin, which was, oh God, why can't I remember his name now?
I can never remember his name.
Oh God. And then there was Steve Bannon, and then there was the gentleman from South America.
Millet or Agustin Laje?
Augustin Laje.
And the people behind Agustin Laje as well.
Yeah. So it would be a very interesting run. And if he does, J.D. Vance is having major connections with Palantir, and I'm sure they're going to go after him on those. But the question is Steve Bannon going to run as an independent? Is he going to run as a Republican? If he does run as a Republican, does he really want to tear J.D. Vance down to the ground in the, what do you call the pre-elections?
Oh my God, why can't I think? The RNC.
Like
it happens at the RNC. Primaries.
Yeah, in the primaries, does he really want to bring up all these connections with Palantir and everything else? Because if he does, he's going to give the left wing or the Democrats a lot of ammo when they go at him. But all of the interesting candidates are really coming from the right wing because they have such a large tent of libertarians, disenfranchised liberals, your traditional rhinos, your new populists. All your interesting candidates are there. RFK is there. Tulsi Gabbard is there. Ivanka Trump is there. JD Vance is there. Like, there is no limit to who's going to kind of run. But as far as who's got the most political smarts, I would say it's definitely between JD Vance and Steve Bannon. So I wouldn't even be surprised if... I think it would be a good match for Steve Bannon and JD Vance to kind of run together. It's going to kind of ground JD Vance's presidential campaign. Right now, a lot of people are questioning JD Vance and his connections to Palantir. Steve Bannon brings a lot of legitimacy with his War Room show and his past actions. So I think he would be a great partner for JD. I just don't know if he would want to be anything other than the main candidate because he has very strong views.
And we do have this from the Daily Mail saying Steve Bannon is secretly plotting a sensational run for president in 2028, and he's already knifing his likely rival. I created him. That kind of sounds like is it Star Wars, or would that be what's it called? Why can't I think today? I can never think when we go live.
This is the thing. He can say, I created him. We know there's a bit of a rift between him and Trump, and he did create him 100%. Just like J.D. Vance is appearing to be made in the lab of Palantir, which is now all kind of coming out. Trump was made in the lab of Steve Bannon, and now he's kind of going off the rails and doing some things that maybe Steve Bannon doesn't agree with. Steve Bannon's probably thinking if he can get Trump elected, he can get elected. Steve Bannon does know how to talk in front of a camera. He's talked for hours. So hours on a daily basis with his War Room show.
So it says Steve Bannon is in the early stages of planning an audacious run for president in 2028. Well-placed sources have told the Daily Mail. The campaign would divide the Make America Great Again movement. Bannon helped build up by setting up a Herculean battle with Vice President J.D. Vance, who is all but certain to launch his own 2028 candidacy, potentially with Donald Trump's blessing. A Bannon-Vance primary would trigger an explosive civil war within Trump's populist movement, pitting its original architect against its institutional inheritor.
Yeah, the populist would follow Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon, other than the one fact that he's going to go to war with China, everything else is great about him, but you know he's going to war with China if he gets in there, and Trump has set a layup for him to do that. Everything the United States right now is doing is preparation for war, from bringing manufacturing back to nationalizing the steel, lumber industry, and everything else. The United States would be ready for war in 2028, and I think Steve Bannon would take full advantage of that and go to war with China. I think J.D. Vance is looking for a war as well because he has Palantir behind him. It's going to come down to, if it is J.D. Vance and Steve Bannon, who is their running mate? So the top candidates for running mate are going to be RFK, a Tulsi Gabbard, even an Ivanka Trump, even a Trump Jr. possibly. They're going to need people with big names.
Says sources close to Steve Bannon and Trump have told Daily Mail the 71-year-old War Room host has begun soliciting political advice, and also with the age. I mean, J.D. Vance does bring a lot younger, which is what a lot of the MAGA people have been asking for. After the whole ridiculousness that was Joe Biden, a lot of talk has started and continues about term limits, about older people and boomers taking over the political space and needing younger people. So in that case, Vance has an advantage. But if they're able to continue with the whole Palantir talk and the connections that Vance has had and what might be stemming from that for the American people, maybe Bannon has a chance. But one source in Bannon's inner circle told the Daily Mail that the former strategist has privately ridiculed the prospect of Vance at the top of the ticket. Love him, but Vance is not tough enough to run in 2028. The source said Bannon conveyed multiple times in his circles. Bannon declined to comment. The seeds of Bannon's potential run emerges just days after Trump said Vance would likely be the favorite to succeed him.
I would also say J.D. Vance his character is really flipped, and the people that were around or put up by Palantir, all their narratives have kind of flipped, and then they became America First candidates. The gentleman that runs Palantir, what's his name? You're no help for me today.
Hold on.
Sam Altman, no, not Sam Altman-Fried. God. Anyway, he completely Peter Thiel, yeah, he completely financed JD Vance as well as a lot of other people. Their tune changed based upon after Trump had won. Steve Bannon has been at least a lot more consistent. I think they would both be headed to war. If you got two candidates that are probably going to go into war, which one is better? I would say Steve Bannon is better because he's a lot less likely to create a security state with Palantir, such as JD Vance is going to do with a digital ID, digital currency, and all the rest. Under Bannon, you probably still get a digital ID, but it might be a little bit more open and free. Digital IDs might not go as far. The security state won't be as far reaching. So at least you can kind of hold that off a little bit.
But as I said, and I think with Bannon, it's sort of the same situation as with Tucker Carlson whenever talks about him running for president start, even last time during Trump's presidential run before they announced who it was going to be during the primaries. I think Bannon is a lot more useful behind the scenes than in front of the scenes, and I think that kind of figure can only be filled by him. And that kind of position within the background and within the strategizing can only be within the background, and if you bring him to the forefront, same as with Tucker, where he's more useful doing what he's doing now than if he were president, because then a lot of restrictions kind of...
His show is, a lot of people aren't watching his show. His show has really developed him as a front-leaning politician now. He's good in front of a camera. He's good with speaking. This is after years of practice. I think Bannon is truly authentic. What he says is what you're going to kind of get. I don't think he's going to make any qualms about he's the China hawk. You kind of know that. At least he's upfront with who he is.
But then,
he's the reason he couldn't have run in the previous elections. His views were far too radical. Trump has kind of bridged that gap, and they're kind of headed in Bannon's direction. So by the time 2028 rolls around, a lot of the things Trump wouldn't say or do, Bannon has already been saying or doing, and I think that's going to be much more socially acceptable to the American public. Bannon has always been considered extreme far right. Now he's only considered far right. And I think America's headed in a very right-wing direction. I think Bannon could be the candidate. The problem is that they're going to have to really dissect JD Vance's past and his connections. And if JD Vance somehow wins the primaries, but he gets his character absolutely demolished, that's going to hurt him in the actual election against whoever the Democratic or independent candidate is. Also, Steve Bannon doesn't have the financial backing because JD Vance is literally made in the lab of Palantir and a lot of these billionaires. JD Vance has the billionaire backing class.
But then who takes over that strategic position and also that information position that Tucker holds if either of them decide to run or they start, moving more towards a politician job instead of the jobs they're doing right now, which I think are more valuable in the long run.
Yeah, what you're seeing right now is the MAGA base turn on Tucker, and they're also turning on Charlie Kirk because they're aligning with the JD Vance wing, and a lot of past transgressions are kind of coming out. If Bannon securely wins the primaries, you'll see Charlie Kirk and Tucker Carlson slightly change their views to realign with the populist wing, and they'll take over the media presence. Okay, let's go into...
And Walker says, Guy, have you already... Hello, Walker, by the way. Thank you for being here. Says, Guy, have you already talked about the war between Cambodia and Thailand?
No, but I don't know too much about it. I know it's been going on for almost 2 weeks now, or a week. But I've been watching some more mapping of it, but there hasn't been a ton of information about it. So no.
Okay. And then Walker also says, it sounds more like Frankenstein. I created him. That's what I was remembering. Thank you. And Walker also says, Nat, do you think you could talk on the topic of self-entertainment? That could take several different turns, but he says, I think AI is going in that direction where every person in the future will make their own series, movies, cartoons, etc.
We have
been talking about that during Guy's morning show, mostly.
Amazon, because Amazon is attempting to create an app which...
they're taking over buying, right?
No, they're creating Fable, the app. So
but Fable already existed. They just acquired it.
It doesn't exist in the form that you're thinking, no. Okay. They're completely having to make this thing from the ground up, really, and rewrite everything. AI is not at that level yet.
But what I was going to say, before you interrupt
Why don't you explain what Fable is, though?
Fable is like it's an AI program that helps you build cartoons or whatever you want to kind of create, but it's in the very early stages. And it's interesting that Amazon did try to acquire it or is acquiring it in these early stages. They still haven't said, which I think we said mistakenly on the other show, but they haven't said if they will allow their own IPs to be, reproduced within it.
Yeah, they said they're going to start with their own IPs and they're trying to acquire other IPs on top of that.
What they said in the article, because I went back and reread it, was that they're using Fable's IPs that have already been created by the users. That's what's coming into the platform now.
Well, obviously they're going to use their own IPs because already on Twitch, they allow you to use all their IPs when you want to watch movies and things like that.
Stream them. But what I do think is it sounds like it's very creative and very, whoever wants to make their own shows, they can take the story wherever they want. But I think it actually hinders creativity in the end because everything becomes so insular and isolated unless you go share it with other friends once it's, rendered or built or once they can watch it. And then it's just within that small circle instead of becoming or continuing to be the experience where it joins people together and it becomes something a lot of people can talk about. It becomes a very even more insular part of, you have your own little TV show that you're making the story for, but it's not actually becoming something where other people can contribute and talk about. Unless you share it.
I definitely disagree.
Because I don't like
because
AI.
the way Fable is working, they're saying you can make complete episodes or individual scenes of people submit scenes and then other people can submit scenes to keep going with it. Has interaction amongst users, but the real magic of Fable is going to be bringing the users in to write individual scenes and scripts, and they're going to have to sign waivers saying that Amazon's going to own the right to those scripts. So when they're made with this kind of cheap AI, if good scripts are written there, that's proof of concept. Amazon will already own those, and then they can bring them into much larger productions with a lot more investment into it. So it's a way where you're seeing Hollywood studios really lack script writing right now, and it's going to bring script writing it's going to bring the audience into script writing, or that's where a lot of the creativity actually is. So
I guess, but I'm still worried of relying too much on AI because it does make people not use their brains anymore.
Yeah, but in the sense, if people are using the brains to write the scripts for these IPs, and then that's actually writing a better script that's currently being written right now by major studios because there's too many people, too much HR involved, too much DEI involved. If you can streamline the creative process with the real creative people, and then they already own those IPs, and then they can pump a bunch of money into something that's actually a good script, it may actually work in the long run and then make actual movies with less AI invested in the bigger investment.
And what Amazon's doing is they're not fully investing or buying off Fable AI, but they are using their Alexa fund to pump money into it. Yes.
Yeah, and I think that it's really early on still to be making full series, and even when you start making these series, it's going to take a while for the technology to come around. So the AI, you're first going to see it used, how the studios are going to use it to kind of speed up the process and get rid of special effects departments.
And translation and make up scenarios and also like for animation, for example, for the longest time, whenever they had to dub something for like a Spanish market, they had to go back and like reanimate the mouths in a lot of cases because they wouldn't match with what after they got the people in Spanish to do the voiceover, they had to go back and redo the lips specifically. So if AI can do that, it takes a lot less time to actually create something that maybe does become more.
Yeah, but you're also going to see
available.
a lot of craziness with AI because just like YouTube was first to market or Twitter was first to market, whoever's first to market can very often dominate a space. Not always, but very often. If whoever can be first to market and do it kind of right really has the opportunity to be first to market and continue to grow a big user base. So you're going to see a lot of these companies with a lot of money to invest attempt to be the first to market with content creator AI episodes and things like this. But they're going to have to own the IP.
And I do like the idea of it serving as a proof of concept for filmmakers or creators that maybe don't have enough funds, but that can go to a studio or some other entity with money and say, hey, I want to create this. This is kind of what it would look like. Let's make it maybe with real people if it's animated or etc. But Walker also says, haha, sorry, I thought the meaning of that word could be used in that sense, not that it was the main meaning. But I mean, also AI and self-entertainment, let's just call it that as well, could go to dark places, which I also don't love. But it could also put out of business a lot of the corn industry, so that would be a positive, so who knows.
Okay, let's go into the next story here.
Speaking of the corn industry and DEI, exclusive WNBA adult toy incident started by crypto meme coin group.
And yeah, this is the wrong article you grabbed. I know you asked me which article to grab, but remember we covered this on the morning show, and you were asking, oh, how did it start? That's not how it started. We talked about this the other day. There's adult toys being thrown on the court of the WNBA. They're trying to make up this fake story about, how it's coming from meme coins and everything else, but it's not. This is fans laughing at them and making a joke of WNBA players because they're making a joke of themselves. They said they want to be treated like men, but they don't want to lower the hoop. Therefore, the league's not going to be exciting. And when you're arresting and throwing people out of the game for things like this, you're going to get rid of your own fans and you're going to have even less of an audience watching it. Basically, what's happening is people are throwing these toys on the court, and betting markets, sports betting markets, are letting you bet on what color the thing is going to be on which game, things of this nature.
Because other than that, this is the other article I found from CNN, but there's nothing with that title. I think they changed the title probably.
No, what I'm just saying is anything with that's giving the false crypto story, that's a false story that they're trying to spin narratives in the mainstream media. So why don't
But people are betting on, they're using it as a way to bet on these kinds of stuff. But
these are mainstream betting markets that are doing this. So it's not just some little crypto meme thing. This is becoming a much bigger thing.
CNN here is all sad and angry, saying how adult toys thrown at WNBA games revealed a weird window into online culture and opened old wounds for women's sports.
Yeah, and you have to realize when they're talking about a story like this is going to an international market. And if a story is published and they're actually in favor of this or making fun of the WNBA and the toys that are being thrown on the court, that's a criminal act in a lot of countries such as Mexico with these new feminist laws that are coming up. So they're not able to write authentic articles because they'll actually be prosecuted in a lot of countries, which is sad.
Well, I don't know if they'd be prosecuting for writing an article, but they might be, the people doing it might be.
Hold on, you're telling
trouble.
me you're not going to be you can't be arrested or forced to make a public apology in Mexico?
No, if you're actually throwing the thing, yeah, probably. But if you write an article talking about something that happened, no.
We have just covered about 3 or 4 stories where people were forced to make public apologies on X.
Yes, because they specifically targeted a specific woman. Not that I'm saying that that's okay, but not because they wrote an article.
They're saying it's for speech. It's not because they threw something on a... Okay.
Well, I don't understand.
I don't think you're understanding what's going on in Mexico with...
I do.
Okay, why don't you explain what's going on in Mexico with one of the stories? Take one of the individual incidents.
So with the lady that was forced to apologize on X for 30 days, called Protected Data or Dato Protegido, Carla Estrella, a regular citizen, wrote a tweet saying specifically about a female legislator, saying, oh, you got your position because of your husband. So that legislator got angry and said that was gendered political violence against her. So she had the supposedly independent organism for elections in Mexico go after this individual citizen, just espousing an opinion about this legislator specifically, saying she's doing political gender violence against me. And so
if you have a pro article saying it's a funny thing to throw these on the courts and these women are getting what's kind of coming to them, how is that could be also portrayed as gender violence?
That's as misogyny, probably.
Yeah, so it under the exact same type of laws.
But I'm saying I don't think that an outlet like CNN or the writers for CNN would get in trouble for it. That's what I'm saying. Okay. Unless they were specifically going after something more
Technically,
specific.
they could because they've already implemented similar laws and gone after similar people in certain countries, not just Mexico, based on feminist laws.
Sure.
Okay.
Walker says, I think I can still detect videos made with AI, but I think they will be undetectable in the future. I think there'll always be a way to kind of tell.
No.
But I don't know.
I've already been tricked a few times, and it depends.
Have you?
Yeah, but you watch ridiculous AI videos. If
I
you
don't watch AI. I try to avoid them. As
if you
much
watch
as I
AI
can.
videos that like a lot of AI videos tend to be ridiculous, like it was a giant dog, it looks real. But when you make AI videos based upon real footage and then you add things in, they're virtually undetectable already.
And that is, I do think it is important for outlets like you, not outlets, sites like YouTube, Instagram, etc., to force people to actually declare if it is made with AI or not. And a lot of people are against that because a lot of even businesses would fall, or people that make money through AI-generated content. But I do think it's important to kind of weed it out at the roots instead of letting it, continue to get bigger and bigger.
Yeah, you can currently detect AI with other AI. So if you're unsure, which is at least one good thing, because they're digital watermarks on everything and the way things are created. So AI is able to detect it, which is a good thing so far.
But we never finished with the WNBA story, so.
Well, why don't we move on from this one?
Okay, fine.
Because we have quite a few stories today.
Okay. So from DW, Poland, Trump-backed Nawrocki sworn in as new president. Conservative Karol Nawrocki spoke against the euro single currency in his first speech as president. He's set for a confrontation with Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk.
Yeah, and this is big because he was elected, but now that he's actually sworn in, it's really hard to take him out of office without some kind of major scandal. They did not want him in there, especially because Poland is a very strategically important country to the EU if they want to start a war with Russia or escalate that. So is Romania. So having somebody that potentially doesn't want to escalate that war is going to be interesting. I'm just glad he made it to the point where he was sworn in.
Do you want me to read more into it?
Yeah, let's read a little bit.
Nationalist historian Karol Nawrocki took the oath of office as Poland's new president on Wednesday.
One moment. We have covered him in the past. If you don't remember, it's the videos where he's ripping down LGBTQ flags, burning them, stepping on top of them. And when I say ripping them down, he's ripping them down from government buildings and things of this nature. So, yeah, he's a true conservative in that sense.
Nawrocki, a political novice, led a victory in the June election in which he had the backing of U.S. President Donald Trump. The prime minister in Poland has most day-to-day power, but the president has power to initiate or veto laws and influence foreign policy. What did he say in his first speech? He vowed to be the voice of Poles who want the country to retain its sovereignty as part of the European Union. He said he opposed illegal immigration and joining the euro single currency and called for revamping the Polish constitution. I will, of course, support relations within the European Union, but I will never agree to the European Union taking competences away from Poland, especially in matters that are not enshrined in the European treaties.
Yeah, and he's talking about sovereignty, taking away sovereignty from the nation, and that's what the EU's been doing for a long time here. But now, if we look at Eastern Europe, we have this gentleman who's right wing. We have the Hungarian President Viktor Orban, who I really like as well. Then we also have the lady in Italy. What's her name again?
Giorgia
Meloni. Those three alone, they have to cooperate with the EU a lot because the EU kind of has them by the balls as far as banking and national debt goes. But they're really pushing back as much as a leader in the EU can push back. Also, the Romanian election was stolen. Otherwise, Romania would have been a populist candidate as well. So Eastern Europe altogether are really following what the people want. And that is kind of right-wing populism at the moment.
So the 42-year-old historian with no political experience before campaigning, Nawrocki is officially nonpartisan, although he joined the race as candidate backed by the right-wing Conservative Law and Justice Party. His conservative supporters view him as a figure of traditional patriotic values. In the months leading up to the election, he was embroiled in a series of scandals, including one over property tax and another one over allegedly arranging adult workers for clients in the past. He denied the allegations. During his campaign, the U.S. conservative group CPAC held its first meeting in Poland to give Nawrocki a boost. In May, he met Trump at the White House, and the president told him, "You will win."
Yeah, it's going to be interesting if the EU is even able to hold together at this time. I think that's part of the reason they had to give Donald Trump such a lucrative deal. It was a extremely bad deal for the EU, but an extremely good deal for Trump. A lot of people think Trump may have had a lot of dirt on the EU when it came to elections and other things, such as some Epstein files, maybe why these aren't being released. Trump is using it as a power play against EU leaders to kind of maneuver them into deals, tariff deals and things like this.
And do you want to watch a speech he gave at some point?
Yeah, if you can translate it. So you just pause it and read the translation at times.
Okay.
Oh, I put it over here today.
Moja Polska jest Polską bez nielegalnych migrantów.
Poland is a Poland without illegal migrants.
Tak,
Yes, it is.
jest Polską bez nielegalnych migrantów.
A Poland without illegal migrants.
Okay, I turned it down so you can just read it as it goes.
Okay.
Jest Polską, w której
Is a Poland in which instead of integration centers, there are deportation centers for those who want to destroy our country, I'm guessing. And then they're just going to be singing.
Oh, I think there's more.
And they're singing, "This is Poland, this is Poland." Or yelling.
Okay, you're right.
I know.
So yeah, as you can see, he wants to deport all the migrants that are being forced into Poland by the EU. He only has the power to deport the illegal migrants. The EU has forced very broad rules on who qualifies for legal immigration into the country. So there still will be a ton of migrants within the country even after they deport the illegal migrants.
And Walker says, "I don't think even AI can detect other AI." I mean, eventually. I don't know if now, I didn't even know that was a function, but maybe.
Yeah, as of right now, it can. So, and it's actually AI is able to. If you write a paper and you tell AI to write a paper so AI can't detect itself, it can do that now. So, but that's with writing a paper. But when it comes to actual AI video, it's still detectable by other AIs.
And Walker also says, "Oh, they are based in Poland." Well,
Yeah,
now
it was
even
looking more like American than Poland there.
Yes. And speaking of,
And wait 1 sec. We were actually talking about Steve Bannon, and Steve Bannon is who created the populist revolution, especially in Eastern Europe with Viktor Orban in Poland and Romania as well. He goes to the ground quite a lot and was making a lot of inroads, putting a lot of American dollars over into these elections, advising the candidates what are the best policies, what's the direction of the populist movement. So all of these candidates you're seeing coming up in Eastern Europe and their political strategies, which they used to come to power, were all because of Steve Bannon. And this is why Steve Bannon will have a real chance at the 2028 election if he decides to run.
and he does have a lot of friends and connections.
Oh, yeah.
All around, essentially. But speaking of mass migration, Candace Malcolm from Canada says this is total chaos in our cities as a result of mass migration and failed integration. This scene from Calgary, Alberta last year has gone totally viral again because Canada doesn't feel like Canada anymore. It didn't feel like that when we left.
Yeah,
It was
this is
not Canada
this is
anymore.
absolutely crazy. This looks like India. This is not like with the basic resources which the city's supposed to provide can't provide that because too many immigrants have been allowed into the country, and this is a visual example of that. They're going to have a interview with an immigrant at the end. He goes, "Oh, this is normal. This is how it is back home."
And also because of Canada was never preoccupied with trying to increase the infrastructure, increase housing, as they were putting forth policies that would increase mass migration to the levels at which they are now. Can you increase the volume?
Oh yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Watch as you see a woman in a brown jacket running alongside the moving shuttle bus.
Pause
With
it.
a massive group.
Once the bus is full, it's just going to keep driving and it's not going to open their doors. So these people are panicking, trying to get the bus to stop and shove everybody in there, which, yeah, is craziness.
Of bus users chasing down the bus in an attempt to board it. In response to the scene of the Franklin LRT station, Calgary Transit says in a statement, as soon as we are made aware of a situation, Calgary Transit promptly deploys shuttles to assist customers. In this case, 13 shuttles have been deployed. Transit ambassadors are also on site helping customers with wayfinding and
And pause
directing
it
them
just so
to
we don't get a strike. Okay, let's play it again there.
shuttles. During the mad rush to catch a bus, this man says this is something he's seen before.
Yeah, in my homeland like this.
Yeah.
Does it remind you of your homeland? Where's your homeland?
Punjab.
And this is like this?
Yeah.
But yeah, because they're bringing it over.
Oh.
And yeah, I mean, we
Well,
got to see it.
it wouldn't necessarily be a problem in Canada if they were properly integrating people and then expanding the services and the housing at a proper rate. People wouldn't be complaining, but Canada is on the verge of collapse, and they're trying to avoid that collapse by bringing illegal immigrants in, but they're losing long-term Canadian citizens that really have a much higher GDP earning potential and are already integrated into society. Those people are leaving, or they're getting low-value immigrants that are really not good for GDP, are taking more from the system than they're giving.
And they're leaving, or they're turning to, desperation and going to the streets, because now a lot more local population of Canadians are living on the streets with addiction issues and other mental issues. And I mean, nobody's there to help them because there's no way to pay for it.
Yeah, I just thought that was a funny video. So, well, what is the next article that we got? Is it Russia?
Debanking.
Oh, debanking. I just threw this in.
So from CNN Business, why Trump is so fixated on debanking.
And it's not that he's fixated on it. He's actually gone after him. This was a different article than the one I pulled, but it's still going to let us kind of talk about the subject matter. He was personally debanked by two of the largest banks in the United States under the Biden administration, and thousands of other people were in Canada. They did it against against people that were supportive of the truckers. Mm-hmm. That was how our channel originally started. We were going to the border to kind of film that. It's a good thing Trump is really going after all the people that not only prosecuted him, but other conservatives over the past decade.
So it says New York President Donald Trump is doubling down on debanking, one niche political issue that now appears deeply personal for him. While Trump's at times rocky professional history with Wall Street banks is well documented, he aligned himself Tuesday with many of his MAGA supporters who claim they've been shut out of from mainstream finance.
Yeah, and let's pause it here for a minute. And I wouldn't necessarily, I think this is authentic. He's going after these banks that are debanking, but there could also be an alternative reason for this. So don't just think it's all roses and cupcakes here. The ulterior motive is they have to make people comfortable with the banking system, because if they don't, when they try to bring a digital ID in and connect everybody's bank account to that, it's going to be extremely easy to turn off people's bank accounts. So he really needs to reassure the public that's not going to happen in order to bring a digital ID. I think this is an issue. I think he was personally attacked by these banks, but I also anger in the public with the banks, I think, is a necessary evil to have at this point, because it will make people push back against digital IDs.
And we have also spoken about another example where this happened to lawyers that are helping people fight in the court system in Canada about the Freedom Convoy and everything that happened there. And also to the organizers themselves, they still are not able to fully get back their bank accounts and back their whole financial infrastructure because they were debanked. So it is something that happens. But it says Trump was responding to questions about an executive order he is reportedly preparing to sign. Did he sign it today?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he signed it today that would direct bank regulators to investigate whether any financial institutions might have unfairly rejected customers on political or religious grounds. And let's unpack it. And then crypto industry advocates and the president are also, for this, because it would also liberate them a little bit more to do.
Well, also he has to reassure not just the American public, but the public worldwide with stable coins coming out and the way he's going to be trying to roll out digital currency to the world. He wants to put America at the center of that financial institution, just like he did with the American dollar. Most likely they want an external and an internal American dollar, one working on stable coin. You can't do that if people think their bank account could be shut off or their funds could be confiscated, what's happening with possibly in the future with the Russian war. It could make people not have confidence in the American banking system. So the American banking system really needs to intentionally not discriminate against people if they want to be the center of the financial world.
And just quickly, because they explain it here, what is debanking? Broadly, debanking is an umbrella term for when a bank turns away a potential customer, which can happen for a bunch of reasons. Maybe you've got a bad credit, say, or a history of not repaying loans, or associations with criminal enterprises or business models that don't work for the bank. To be clear, Americans don't have a legal right to a bank account, and it's not unusual for a bank to reject a person or business they see as risky. And it's not because banks don't like a little risk when issuing loans, it's because they like risk so much. There are now a mountain of laws to protect banks from themselves. After all, we've seen how messy it can get. But what they don't really want to go into is about the debanking due to ideological, political, or religious reasons. And that is, I think, the main important issue and what has been happening lately. It's not that people are complaining that, oh, because I have bad credit, they took away my bank account or they confiscated my assets. It's more they're not allowing me to bank because of a certain political opinion or a donation I have made specifically.
There was a ton of different political opinions that could get you debanked or thrown off YouTube or other things because the populist right became such a large tent. That being said, it's happening on the right, but just very narrowly, so it's not really talked about as much, and it's not really an issue if it's just one small group. People don't pay as much attention. Right now, they're really doing censorship with anti-Semitism, as well as they're debanking people that are sometimes pro-Palestine or have extremist beliefs, as well as throwing them out of colleges and taking their good degrees and things like that. So it is happening with Donald Trump implementing laws against the left, but very narrowly. When the left was doing it, it was against so many groups with so many opinions. It was crazy, and it was getting so out of control that eventually everybody kind of turned against the left because of it.
And the main issue with digital ID and the CBDC is that becomes so much easier as well. So the censorship that you can face due to XYZ in Mexico, it could be misogyny because you, called out a legislator for something true that she did. That could also now start affecting your well-being as a person and your ability to buy things and feed yourself and your family. So it is a lot more serious than people take it, but because the examples have been so narrow, small, and targeted as of now, doesn't mean that it could expand or that the other side could also use it as well. So like with Trump wanting to debank other ones, if a legislation is passed in the States to not do it to anybody, well, then I think that would protect just everybody in general.
Or if a war breaks out. I don't know if a war will break out under Trump, but whoever comes in after Trump, and I think that's what they need to be preparing for now. Who's going to take over the MAGA movement? Who's going to really rise up with left-wing populism as well? Who's going to take over that movement, and how is that going to really affect if we do go to war? Because once you go to war, all the laws change. A lot of the Constitution goes out the door in a lot of countries such as Canada, and censorship will become a thing. So...
And Walker says, that sounds scary, but I almost always have like $2 left at the end of the month. Same,
yeah.
but still.
I'm the same, so it doesn't matter to me as much. But people that do have mortgages or things like that, we seen on the trucker convoy, they were confiscating people's houses because they weren't allowing them to make automatic payments from their bank account. Then they would say, oh, you've not paid your mortgage for a month, even though the mortgage is done through the same bank that has their bank account. It was crazy.
That shut down their bank account. But speaking of war, I guess, from Reuters, Kremlin says Trump, Putin to meet soon as Ukraine seeks role for Europe.
Yeah, Trump is trying to back down here. He was threatening to sanction other countries if they didn't stop buying oil from Russia. That date was supposed to be today, I believe it was. And he needs a way to kind of get out of this because India refused to stop buying oil from Russia. They even came out with a statement saying Biden told them to buy oil from the Russians and then resell it to the Europeans because otherwise the European economy would collapse. So Trump thought he was going to back India down and maybe some other smaller countries. They didn't really back down from this issue. So now he's going to go meet with Putin, and he has to look like something's coming along in that way, so he doesn't have to put these tariffs on these countries. Because if he does put tariffs on these countries for buying oil from Russia, it's going to shoot oil prices through the roof, which will turn a large portion of the voter base against Trump. So he just has to look like there's some negotiations and saying, oh yeah, things are coming along. We're not going to put these kind of tariffs on certain countries for buying oil from Russia. When this news first came out, people were very hopeful of the end of the Ukraine war. I don't think it's anything like this. I'm not even sure the meeting will actually happen. If it does happen, it's just going to be so people kind of forget that he was supposed to put tariffs on these other countries for buying oil from Russia.
I think they were supposed to go meet in Alaska, was announced today, I think. But
no.
again, it hasn't fully, yes.
They're not going to meet in Russia's not going to meet in Alaska. There's Rome was. You have to realize these are EU and US papers putting this garbage out there.
We'll meet in Alaska on August 15th.
Who said that?
Le Monde, a bunch of outlets. I'm looking at it just now.
Did Putin agree to that?
Trump
No.
says he will meet Putin on next Friday in Alaska.
Okay, I'll be surprised if they meet in Alaska.
Here, Trump says he will meet Putin next Friday in Alaska to discuss ending the Ukraine war.
Okay, I'm going to be surprised if they meet in Alaska.
President Trump says he will meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin next Friday in Alaska to discuss ending the war in Ukraine, a potential breakthrough after weeks of expressing frustration that more was not being done to quell the fire. The Kremlin has not yet confirmed the details, which Trump
So
announced.
this just came out at 6:03 p.m.
Which Trump announced on social media, but both nations had said they expected a meeting could happen as soon as next week.
It was originally expected that the United Arab Emirates was going to be the location. Anywhere Putin goes, it's extremely risky because if he touches on U.S. soil, they could justify arresting him. That being said, Trump, I would expect Putin to have a very heavy military presence, and Alaska is very close to Russia, so it may be easy to bring a heavy military presence over there.
Do you think it could be a trap?
I don't think so. So, no.
Because, I mean, Europe kind of gave...
Trump has good relations with Putin generally, but if I was Putin, I wouldn't want to go to Europe because Europe would try to do something crazy. They want a war at this point.
Why doesn't Trump go to Russia?
Well, he could, but it's about when it comes to politics, wherever you have the meeting, if he goes to Russia, it looks like the Russia is kind of the big boss. If it happens in the White House, that really puts the U.S. in a power play position as far as optics go. So
if they're in Alaska, they're like, maybe they could meet at the like ice sheet on the Bering Gap.
Well, if it's in Alaska, at least it's very close to Russia. So
Closer. And you had something else about Russia, about Russian official.
yeah, why don't you go into it if we have an article?
So from Benny Johnson, Russian official Yuri Yushakov says they've received an offer reportedly related to the war in Ukraine from President Trump that they find acceptable. There was an offer from the American side, which the Russian side deems acceptable.
Yeah, and a lot of people when this news first came out were saying, oh my God, this is going to be into the Ukraine war. Trump did it. But I don't think that's the case at all. And they were already trying to bring Zelensky to the meeting. Putin completely rejected that idea. So there was a lot of hope when the statement was first made. I think this was yesterday or the day before. But don't look too far into it.
But maybe now that they're saying they're going to meet in Alaska, couldn't that like
No,
further?
there's not going to be a deal here.
Do you want to watch him?
Yeah,
say
we can watch them.
We'll see.
Putin.
Do you want to bet?
Yeah, how much do you want to bet?
I don't know.
Whatever
I
you
know
want.
nothing about this.
How much do you want to bet? Because
you're better at
I'll bet the
geopolitical.
house on it.
We don't have one. But the dog,
The dog. Okay, you
we
take
have
care of
nothing to bet. Everything's for both of us.
you take care of the dog from here on in for the rest of our relationship.
So forever.
Yeah, forever. I don't have to walk her. I don't have to feed her. Walk her. You've heard it.
No, I was thinking more like a tamal or something.
Oh, you go from okay.
Something
You
easy.
can owe me. We can go out for breakfast. You
Sure, we can go out for
Would
breakfast.
you?
I'll buy you a donut
Thank you.
if you're
We
right.
went to a new donut place. We should tell the people after this.
Okay.
Предложение со стороны американцев, которое нам представляется вполне приемлемым.
А где возможное место встречи?
Oh, I thought it had
If
subtitles.
anyone speaks Russian, there you go.
One of the other videos I had subtitles. But yeah, we did go to a donut place this weekend.
Yeah, you are on a quest to find donuts that kind of.
Well, I generally like going to pizza by the slice places and donut places and kind of like
Back in Vancouver.
reviewing them in my head or finding the best ones. I also like breakfast places for that reason. But what was the name of we went to Austin Donuts first. I really like Austin Donuts. Bad coffee, great donuts. And it seems to be very family owned. It's a small shop. It's here in Mexico City. What was the one we went to this weekend though?
It was more of a chain. I didn't know fully it was a chain. It was like Randy's or
Oh
something.
yeah, Randy's Donuts. We walked in. It was something between a corporate donut, corporate America meets a hospital meets. Yeah.
And I think that's how they're designed all over the States as well.
The donuts it was more of a corporate donut, but they had some standout donuts. And those standout donuts, if you ever go to Randy's Donuts, is the apple fritter. Absolutely amazing. And then also
I actually like the Austin donut apple fritter more than that one.
Oh, I didn't. And then the Long John actually it was cream filled, so that made it. Shut up.
So what?
Yeah. So if you do go to Randy's Donuts, not as good as Austin Donuts here in Mexico City, but the apple fritter is absolutely amazing.
Maybe one day we can do a series just reviewing
Yeah.
donuts or something. But yes, I'll buy
Okay.
you a donut. Walker says Putin isn't going to Alaska. It's too unpopular in terms of symbolism and overall. If it were up to Putin, the meeting would be in Belarus. Lol. But
Yeah, but now that I'm hearing it, like the Chinese went to Alaska as well. Alaska is kind of considered a neutral ground, and Russia did used to own Alaska. So yeah, I could see it happening just because China went there as well, and it's so close. It's easy for him to bring quite a big military entourage, and I think that's what he's going to want.
I mean, he could have like subs off the coast.
Yeah.
And Walker says, but perhaps it will be in some ex-Soviet country in the Caucasus.
No, I don't think Trump wants to go over to the Soviet Union. It's going to look like he's placating to Putin so much. And I don't think Trump actually minds placating to him, but he doesn't like the optics of it. And this entire thing is really all about optics. It's just to say, oh yeah, I'm helping facilitate the negotiations. We're getting closer. We're not going to put further sanctions on other countries. He went too far and reached too far with these sanctions on India, and he needs to back out. But he needs to look like he's justified in backing out, meaning he's getting closer to the end of the war, even if he's not.
Sorry.
Okay.
Our dog is eating the blanket again.
Okay, and let's go into the next story here.
Yes. Hold on. Ow. Oh, Rafa says, hello,
Oh,
Rafa,
good to
how
see
are
you.
you? And he says, first time I'm able to reach you in the schedule. Yeah, sorry, we had to change it. But at least that way I can continue to speak in Spanish for as long as I want. I've been doing really long shows now.
Well, and today we're going to be filming after
my live. So my live in Spanish might be a bit shorter this time.
Yeah.
And Walker says, you should send more Jaime Duende videos to Nat. Please don't, because it's nightmare fuel. And Rafa says, I have the theory that it's not Nat's type of humor and Guy can't understand them. I can translate them for him. But yeah, I'll show it to you later after. Next story?
Yeah, let's go into the next story.
Crazy Canada. From Andrew Lawton, who used to be still is an independent media.
And I think this is the future of politics. This larger gentleman here is Andrew Lawton. He used to run True North, which is an independent media organization. Basically, he was an independent YouTuber in Canada.
But he also made like a media outlet out of it as well.
And he was an independent YouTuber in Canada. It was all based around politics. And now he was elected into parliament based upon his popularity on YouTube. This has happened in other countries as well, in the EU. I really think through YouTube, you can make a connection with a mass audience, which you can then kind of snowball into electoral votes. Mm-hmm. So I think this is going to be really the template going forward. And you're also able to not need corporate donors as much. You can rely on $5 and $10 donations from people that watch your YouTube into a political campaign. And you really the audience really knows you have authentic views because you talk about those views every day. So they know who you really are, and you can be a lot more trusted by the general public.
Yes. And Andrew Lawton says, in a free society,
Okay, stop, Natalia.
we get to choose how we buy things
Okay,
between
stop.
what?
With the
Trying
dog.
to stop her from eating her blanket. Between farmers, markets, swap meets, and purchases of used cars and farm equipment, there are plenty of law-abiding citizens dealing in cash. Bill C2's ban on cash transactions over 10,000 is pure government overreach.
Okay, and we can play this actually. And we've talked quite a bit about this, but this is happening in the EU for in
Canada?
certain.
Canada?
No, this is happening in the EU as well, but with $3,000 purchases. So Canada's $10,000 purchases is actually more lenient. But once they set it, they're going to keep dropping the dollar amount until even a $50 purchase is going to be legal to pay with cash.
And then we look at Part 11 of the bill, which bans cash transactions over $10,000. It does not put a reporting requirement. It does not restrict it. It does not add bureaucracy or red tape. It is a clear ban. I will read directly from the bill. Every person or entity that is engaged in a business, a profession, or the solicitation of charitable financial donations from the public commits an offense if the person or entity accepts a cash payment, donation, or deposit of $10,000 or more in a single transaction or in a prescribed series of related transactions that total $10,000 or more. Now, I mean, after 10 years of economic mismanagement, $10,000 is a regular haul at the grocery store, Mr. Speaker. But $10,000, this may seem like an amount, as the Liberals like to say, that, well, no one is dealing in that. No one is going around and dealing.
And yeah, when I sold my motorcycle before I left Canada, I sold it for like just over $10,000. So for vehicles, there's lots of purchases that are $10,000. A lot of electronics can go up to $10,000, especially if you have a new home, if you're trying to furnish that home. A lot of things in Canada can end up costing $10,000.
In $10,000 transactions unless they have something to hide. I represent a lot of rural and smaller communities in my riding. It is not uncommon for someone to go and buy a used vehicle, to buy a farm truck, to buy a new piece of equipment for $10,000, $15,000. And you may say, as the Liberals do, well, why would anyone need to do that? Well, we live in a free society where we do not need to justify our decision to engage in transactions with legal tender to the government. And I'm very aware of the fact that as I speak, the federal government, the Liberal government, is actively fighting in court against a federal court decision that found its use of the Emergencies Act was illegal in 2022. This is a government that unlawfully and unconstitutionally froze people's bank accounts without due process and without oversight. Now that sent a chill throughout the country as people realized that this is a government that would use its power without regard for the law. So I do not accept that this government is permitted to say, just trust us, with putting a further restriction in place on how Canadians transact.
Okay, that's pretty good. We kind of get the gist of it there. Also, that being said, he's a very good speaker, and you can see that, and that develops over years on YouTube because it's not easy to speak publicly, even on a camera, let alone in front of Parliament like that. But it is being video recorded, and it is very important. So the general public, when they watch it, it's palatable for them. Okay, and the next article is going to be about the CBC, actually. And I'll switch over to Nat here.
I'm fighting with the dog. Hold on. I'm going to take her blanket away.
Okay, everybody's waiting for you, Nat.
Just keep going.
Well, I can't go. You have control over all. This is why I said I needed control over certain things. I can't switch the stories and stuff like that, so.
Sorry, I tried to save your dog's life.
Oh, yes. Okay, let's keep going.
He gets very angry when I leave
I don't get angry.
him alone.
Okay, let's go into the next story.
Well, it was a continuation of this, so that's why I wanted you to keep talking about it.
Okay.
About the bill that Andrew Lawton is actually talking about. But first, let's read. Walker says, it's incredible that Nat didn't see that gem of Mexican humor at that time. I don't know why it passed me over. I guess it's because it's probably more boy humor and I'm more girl humor oriented. But let's continue with Bill C-2, which are these major changes to Canada's anti-money laundering regime, which sounds like a good idea in principle, but
there's other
once
ways to
again,
do it. You don't have to strip Canadians' freedoms in order to protect Canadians from money laundering.
And also, the amount that they're quoting is very, very low. But it's called, on June 3rd, the federal government introduced Bill C-2. So that is the bill that he was talking about, the Strong Borders Act.
And we also have to remember, it wasn't said in this article, but people that are buying Bitcoin in Canada and taking money out from the banks, not even through a $10,000 amount, but a much lower amount, they're being debanked as well, just for buying Bitcoin, which is supposed to be legal. It's legal in Canada to buy Bitcoin, yet banks are deciding to debank people that are buying Bitcoin.
So one of the central proposals under Bill C-2 is the introduction of tougher penalties for non-compliance, but at the same time also targets large and potentially suspicious cash transactions. It would prohibit cash payments or donations over $10,000 and restrict third-party cash deposits with exceptions to be prescribed, et cetera, but just the idea and the notion that a country wants to start to, look at every single transaction that is more than 10,000, which is not that much. Again, if you're thinking of payments for cars or payments for laundry machines, or like if you're furnishing a house or a tractor, if you're a farmer, having to justify all those purchases to the government is essentially almost like having a CBDC already.
Well, and you have to realize what's the other purpose of this? It's taxation. They want to tax every dollar multiple times. So let's say if you're buying something new, then obviously you're going to have to pay a sales tax. But if you're buying a used vehicle off of somebody else, if you're buying used furniture, if you're buying anything you say off of Facebook Marketplace, but you're buying a bunch of things and you're taking out quite a bit of money, the government wants you to claim that and tax that. Right now, they have no ability to do that. If they start interacting this, then they can start taxing used purchases.
And yet they already tax everybody up the wazoo as it is. So the fact that they want to continue to stifle people is insane.
Okay, and let's go into Pam Bondi. And this was a pretty interesting little story here.
It's not loading. Oh, there we go. Oh, no. She started playing before I wanted her to play. Hold on.
Okay, I'll get my headphone here, maybe.
Are you going to switch to just me?
Okay, and AG Pam Bondi and the DOJ.
There.
Okay.
From Benny Johnson, AG Pam Bondi announces the DOJ and State Department are offering a $50 million reward for information that leads to the arrest of Venezuela dictator Nicolás Maduro.
Okay. And this is interesting because they had almost negotiated what do you call it when you have no legal repercussions?
Deal?
Yeah, it's called something.
Trying to think. I don't know.
Like what you get with that, what Epstein did for all of his other.
I know what you mean, but I can't think of the word right now.
Okay, well, let's just listen to this and then maybe I'll remember.
Okay. It's because you didn't drink coffee today, so he's a little bit off.
Well, you're not remembering either. That's the thing. Immunity. It's called immunity. Yes. They had an immunity deal worked out for Maduro, the high-ranking people in his government and his family, to not only get immunity, but potentially be in the witness protection program or get U.S. citizenship. That was almost worked out, but then the negotiations took place in Mexico City as well. The former CIA director talked about it last time at the Mexico City CPAC. We were there. Yeah, Rick Grinnell. But Trump's term ended, so the negotiation fell apart at the last minute, but they were very, very close to that.
Today, the Department of Justice and State Department are announcing a historic $50 million.
And this is horrible lighting for her. And she is, like, a lot of people don't like her in the administration right now. If she's going to go in front of a camera and in front of the public, she should not look like she's a horror villain. It looks like it's bottom-up lighting or something.
A reward for information leading to the arrest of Nicolás Maduro. Maduro uses foreign terrorist organizations like TDA, Sinaloa, and Cartel of the Suns to bring deadly drugs and violence into our country. To date, the DEA has seized 30 tons of cocaine linked to Maduro and his associates, with nearly 7 tons linked to Maduro himself, which represents a primary source of income for the deadly cartels based in Venezuela and Mexico. Cocaine is often laced with fentanyl, resulting in the loss and destruction of countless American lives. The DOJ has seized over $700 million of Maduro-linked assets, including 2 private jets, 9 vehicles, and more. Yet Maduro's reign of terror continues. He is one of the largest narco-traffickers in the world and a threat to our national security.
And this has nothing to do with Maduro. Do you have any thoughts about this before I go into it?
You go.
They're setting a precedence here by saying that we're going to put a $50 million bounty on him. And then on top of that, I'm willing to guess once they get that information, they're willing to do drone strikes into that country and take military action. That being said, this has a lot more to do with Mexico. They want to set this precedent of going after Maduro, putting a bounty on him, possibly having a military strike to go after organized crime in Mexico. If the Mexican government doesn't want to cooperate with U.S. military, they want to have a justification and a precedent set for that with Venezuela. If they can go after the Venezuelan government, it's going to be very easy for them to justify going after the cartels in Mexico.
And funnily enough, Trump just did announce today, at least he was thinking of, I don't believe he fully signed it, but maybe he did. I haven't double checked, but that he was going to start coming into Mexico to take care of certain things that are happening.
Yeah, I didn't.
And the fact that they gave a 90-day pause on the tariffs to Mexico might also be a signal, like all the dominoes connecting, well, once again, as we speak, about the U.S. maybe getting more involved in helping solve the security issue here in Mexico.
Yeah, and Scheinbaum came out with a statement today. I can't remember what it was, but I didn't want to do it because I couldn't verify it. But it was, again, in her morning meetings, have had a lot of good information lately. Do you see what does it says? It says she said something about Trump and the cartels.
Yeah, I found it in Spanish. Do you want me to read it in Spanish?
Yeah, read it. It's just kind of breaking. I'd seen it on X, so I didn't want to bring it up because very often Spanish news on X, it's not the best source. But this is an actual article now.
Sheinbaum from CNN Mexico. Sheinbaum reacts to supposed decree of Trump against cartels. U.S. is not going to come into Mexico with military. President of Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum, denied during her morning press conference that an eventual decree from her U.S. colleague Donald Trump against cartels would affect the sovereignty of her country. The U.S. is not going to come to Mexico with the military, said Sheinbaum, consulted.
Okay, so what this is telling me, because she's cooperating behind the scenes without a shadow of a doubt, that's how she was able to get the 90-day extension. That's why everybody from the Trump administration, when they talk about Scheinbaum or the Scheinbaum administration, says she's been extremely helpful behind the scenes. When she's saying the U.S. is not going to bring the military in, there's a lot of ways around that. So they can bring in high-ranking military personnel to work with the Mexican military on intelligence and telling them where to strike, and then bring in private military contractors from the United States that work with the Mexican military as well to go after them. So there will be a military force that may be a private military force paid by the American government. It's not necessarily the American military, but I have no doubt that she is cooperating with the American administration right now just because of all the information that is kind of coming out. It's leaking from all kinds of sources in the Trump administration that they have been cooperating.
And she said, we'll cooperate, we'll collaborate, but there's not going to be an invasion. That is, for certain, absolutely out of the question, she insisted. We were informed that this executive order was coming and that it had nothing to do with the participation of any military or any U.S. institution within our territory. She was consulted when the White House was...
But a mercenary group is not like that. And if you put a $50 million bounty on Maduro and then a mercenary group goes in there, you've now set this precedence that it's okay.
And then the White House did not confirm or deny that the decree exists.
Okay, so that's interesting.
that the intention
But she,
exists.
again, on the surface, Scheinbaum is always saying she's not going to cooperate with the U.S. military. U.S. military is not allowed in. Behind the scenes, there is all kinds of different information leaking out. And this is kind of what's holding up the Mexican trade deal, because economically, they're already on the same page. A lot of it has to do with organized crime.
And I've also spoken in Spanish, and I believe in English as well, about the cards that the U.S. holds right now against the current party in power in Mexico, which is Morena, but also all the other parties that have been involved in dealings and in
And
corruption.
keep talking about that. Go over to RUMBLE after. I got to use the restroom.
Oh, so now you can leave. I'm going to leave it on your... Yeah, there. I'm going to leave it on your chair since... Oh, now he is allowed to leave, but... I'm not allowed to save our dog from eating strings from her blanket. Because last time we were doing a live and she was eating her blanket, and it worried me because eventually once we finished, because I could hear her tearing apart the little strings from the blanket, and when we finished, I realized that she had swallowed a string that was still attached to the blanket, so I had to pull it out of her. She almost threw up because it was basically all the way down to her stomach. That is why I get so annoyed with her when she's eating blankets. I'll read your comments, Rafa and Walker, as soon as he comes back. But as I have said in past lives, both in English and in Spanish, and as I was saying before he rudely interrupted me to leave and go to the restroom, with Mexico, the U.S. right now holds so many cards that are allowing Trump and everybody else within the U.S. administration to tell Mexico basically what to do, because Mexico knows what kind of information and power they hold now that they have also captured some of the important elements within a lot of these criminal organizations, I'll call them. I'm not going to use the word Pam Bondi used, but I think also that is making, especially now with the whole Maduro thing, that's making a lot of people with power within Mexico very nervous, and I'd say they want to cooperate more than they don't, because what could come out is worse for their reputations, political careers, and also lives if any of their involved interests get mad at them. So I think it's best, in their best interest, not in the Mexican people's best interest, to continue cooperating mostly with the U.S. and with the threats that they're now making.
Yeah, and if you start
which I don't think is a good idea.
If you start putting major bounties on people's heads, it's an alternative way of bringing the military in. So.
And I said I'd read your comments once Guy came back, so here he is. Walker says, the Canadian plan sounds like what we say here in El Salvador, the $10,000 being tracked, put the dog in charge of the barbecue. And Rafa says, immunity, that was the word we were looking for, so thank you.
Yeah, that was the word.
Walker says, 50 million, wow, it's a shame Maduro isn't part of the U.S. orbit to do the same thing as Noriega and is part of a huge enemy like China.
Yeah, so what they're doing with this $50 million bounty, he has to put the American military, I believe, maybe putting such a big bounty on it because they're kind of they're signaling to private military contractors like, XZ is their name. They've changed their name like 6 times now because they need to keep declaring bankruptcy to get out of different weird situations they've been in third world countries with Indian people. But I think XZ is their newest name. Anyway, when you put a $50 million bounty on, that covers a lot of their operating costs in bringing helicopters, bombs, everything they need into that country to do the hit or to capture the individual and bring them back to the United States. So a $50 million bounty, it's not really aimed at the individual citizens within the country. It's aimed at private military contractors from around the world that are basically like another arm of the U.S. military.
And his comment continues, because you didn't let me finish it. So those 50 million just make them look like that. Clowns.
Yeah. Read it again?
That's why I wanted to read it all through. 50 million. Wow, it's a shame Maduro isn't part of the U.S. orbit to do the same thing as Noriega and is part of a huge enemy like China. So those 50 million just make them look like clowns.
Yeah, and I also think he may want to start renegotiating with Maduro and the Maduro administration to kind of step down. They were so close to a deal last time. Maybe they'll do it this time.
And Walker says, Nat, do a live stream answering comments one of these days. That's basically all my Spanish live streams turn into. Well, I do it in Spanish, but I end up just reading all the comments and answering them
We
all.
don't have enough comments on our English to do it.
No, I mean, we could do it with Rafa and Walker maybe one day. But because, you were asking me, how do you just talk for an hour and a half all by yourself? It's because I'm mostly just answering people's comments, and I can go off on tangents that last forever, which drives him insane. Because he's very to the point, and he just wants the story to be concrete, concise, and quick. And I'm just very explayado. Like, I just talk and talk and talk. And Rafa says, yeah, Shane still doesn't want her puppeteer to end in jail. AMLO.
Yeah.
And I mean, there is a lot of tail to step on with those two. So I'm sure they'll continue to try to cooperate, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's going to be...
well, fortunately and unfortunately. There's both negatives and positives, but I mean, the U.S. coming in further into Mexico and try to deal with it themselves,
well, also,
still not a good idea.
Trump is really preparing for a war, and I don't think he's going to go to war, but his predecessor, I believe, is, especially if it's J.D. Vance or Steve Bannon. And if that is the case, their biggest weakness is actually Mexico, because it's right along their border, and with these cartels, if billions of dollars are invested into the cartels to potentially turn on the United States, it's not a good situation. So I think the United States is really focusing on that and wanting to clean that up right now.
But now we are going to RUMBLE because there are a few topics we can't discuss here, so we'll see you over there in a few seconds.
And if you're not subscribed, please do so. We're trying to get to 500 subscribers, eventually 1,000, so we can get monetized.
Yes, so we'll see you over at RUMBLE in a few seconds.
Okay.